being a better League of Legends player and how to improve individually and collectively as a team. Um, we'll start a little bit with my background. Um, I have 6 years of traditional coaching experience in the middle school and high school level. So working with students around the same ages that this will be going out to, in different sports, track and field, football, hockey, all that stuff. I was a traditional sports athlete as well, and then obviously injuries and getting older changed
Yeah.
that. So I switched my focus more to esports, which was able to really fill that void that I had from traditional sports since I couldn't compete any longer. In my league coaching experience, I've coached League of Legends for 7 years now. I have coached well over 300 competitive players from 26 different countries all over Europe, speaking many different languages. Coached Asian players, South American players, you name it. I've coached someone from there, which is one of the things that I like about League is that it's so global that everyone competes and plays together and has fun. Um, I was also the first American coach to ever fly over and be paid to coach a professional team of League of Legends. And then also, I was featured on the client in 2018 while I was living in England, and it was a great experience. I loved all of it, and yeah, I just hope to share some of my experience with you guys. Um, how to get better at League of Legends? Obviously, this is a extremely easy and difficult topic all at once. Um, if you just go ahead and Google or YouTube how to get better at League, there are thousands, if not tens of thousands, of videos of how to improve at League of Legends based on champions, based on I'm a challenger player and this is how I climbed. And there are a ton of clickbaits. There is no do this one thing and you'll be challenger. Much as life, League of Legends is a process, and there really are no shortcuts. um, you have to practice, you have to work at it, you have to develop your skills, and eventually you will get better. The one thing you can't get discouraged by is some players will just be better than you with less effort and less dedication. And we've all, had those friends that are just naturally good at something. And that happens with League as well. Um, what it takes to actually get better and what to work on. League individually is an extremely complicated game. At its core, it's you just blow up the enemy's team space and you win, right? But there are 160 plus champions over 3 lanes, and hundreds of items that you can buy. So the game is constantly changing, and it's extremely difficult to understand and know every single thing about the game. So just
Sorry. Sorry, you can finish your point there.
no. So just like normal, like super complicated topics, the easiest way to learn is by breaking it up into smaller pieces. But go ahead.
Okay, so I'm sorry. I would like to finish that out, but I wanted to say like some things before because the stream
No, no.
started, but you were talking. So hi, hello everyone watching. My name is Nicholas Banks. I am a college student athlete intern for the MHSEL, and with me right now is he goes by LOL Mans. I
Coach
don't
Mans.
Coach Mans,
Yes.
LOL Mans, League of
Yeah.
Legends. But yes,
Yeah.
this is Coach Mans. He is the coach for the League of Legends team at Ferris State, and me personally, I don't know much about League of Legends. I dabbled in it like for a good 5 days when I was in middle school, so I don't know a whole lot about it. But seeing as he is a coach for a League of Legends team at Ferris State, I would believe to know that because he has many years in this game, he knows a lot of things. He's learned a lot of things about getting better, and he'll be able to help you guys get better at the game, just like how any other players can do with their game. So, sorry to cut you off there, but I'll
No,
let you. I just want to do an introduction. You can get back to what you're saying now.
no, you're fine. Yeah, I, I just love League so much that I'll just start running and never stop. So feel free to stop me whenever. I know
Trust me, I'm the same way when it comes to Smash. When someone starts to talk to me about Smash, I'm like, oh, let me tell you about all the things that I know about my characters plus some more.
exactly. And I mean, I can even take like references from Smash, like individual chant matchups or character matchups are different based on the character you play, sometimes based on the map, I assume as well. Um,
Yeah, so with Smash, basically when you're playing a tournament match, you would obviously you would ban the stages first because the character you play is based off the stage a lot with platforms and all that. So there's a lot of stage knowledge as well as character knowledge for Smash. Meanwhile, with League of Legends, there is map knowledge because you have the 3 lanes plus jungle, and then there's also understanding all 5 roles of what they excel at. And there's just a lot more into League than there is Smash because not only is there individual aspects with it, there's also team aspects with it.
Absolutely. Yes, it's by far one of the more complicated esports. And it's because of that complication, there's a huge barrier to entry. But at its core, just like Smash, all you have to do is just knock the person off the platform, and that's how you win, right? League is a very similar thing to where if you just blow up their base, you win. But there are millions of different things that can happen, millions of different interactions, millions of different things that can go
Yeah,
wrong
like
individually.
yeah, it's like the things that can happen in a game is similar to Smash because with Smash, there's one thing that could happen that could just turn the whole momentum and tide of what's happening in that one stock. But with League of Legends, because there's 5 players and as well as the like little ads, like I call them, like I forgot what the actual term is for them.
Minions.
But yeah,
Minions.
minions. Like you have the little minions, you have the actual people you're playing against, as well as if you're in jungle, the like dragon and other stuff that they give you buffs. So there's more strategy to it and all that, and there's like a lot more to it, and a lot can happen on a dime. It can switch really quickly because I've seen that happen. And I'm like, what just happened? I saw a whole bunch of explosions and flashing colors, and the guy who was just pushing really good just died.
Yes. And then there's the whole economy of the game. Killing the minions gives you money, and then when you get money, you buy items, and then those items will make you stronger at certain points. And
Yeah.
it's yes, it's like I said, it's by far probably the most complicated esports there is,
The
which is constantly changing as well.
the item
So
buying thing, I remember I talked to a league player on my team here. He said like the same thing. The meta of the game is constantly changing because not only are they working on champions, but they're working on the many items that you can buy as well to build your specific champions.
yes, things like changing an item by like 300 gold completely changes matchups because 300 gold is essentially like 3 waves, or 1 kill. So if you don't get that kill, then you will be pushed back a little bit longer, like time wise, and then it's really awkward base timings. And I could go on forever, and it can get like super high level. But for the most part, you just like Overwatch, you just click minions and get money, or not like Overwatch, but click minions. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot. So, anyways, go.
One question I do have hearing you
Yeah.
talk was you said changing an item to 300 gold makes a difference to changing like between 2 to 3 waves. And my question, I heard you say waves. When you say waves, you mean like when you're playing the game, there's always like the wave of like 5 to 6 minions that come through. Is that what you mean by a wave, or is there more to it than that?
Absolutely. So there's 6 minions by default, 3 melees, 3 casters, and then every. So you're gonna put me on the spot here. Third wave, I want to say, is the cannon minion, which then will be added to it. So then it's 7 minions. And then after 20 minutes, every wave's got a cannon minion, which also then just changes the economy. But the one cannon minion spawns per lane. At certain times. So it'll go top, mid, and then bottom. So then if you're the jungler, you can go top, get the cannon minion there, go mid, get the cannon minion there, and go bottom, get the cannon minion there.
See,
And
I
still
didn't
make
know that it
yes.
alternated what lanes. That actually, just thinking about that does make me imagine it changes a good bit because you can have someone who knows the rotation go up to the top, get the minions, and then if they need more gold, they can go exactly to where their minions can be right there and get those kills as well. So that's something I didn't know about.
So that's super high level that usually doesn't actually affect anything. So for the most part, the jungler isn't looking to go to the individual cannon minions to collect the gold. It's just one of those things where like base timings can be based off cannon minions. So because then the cannon minions got the most HP, so the tower takes more hits to kill it. So you base on cannon minions because then the wave's gonna stay alive longer. And again, like I said, we can get into this like crazy long discussion of like how minions work and then how towers work and then the different objectives, the buffs, the jungle camps when they respawn, the proper timings. Proper jungle rotations. Like I even had I had a math class in my university where I proved that certain jungle paths were more efficient based on how quickly they respawn and how quickly your champion moves. So I that was one of my like math assignments, and it is one of those things where it's just like I really enjoy making League of Legends stuff for my school as well, and I know my school is really happy that I'm also here doing League of Legends stuff as well. So
Yeah, it's always great to have someone like to have a coach who's very passionate about your game come to help you out. It's a great feeling. So let's moving aside from the minion talk because as you said, there's a lot that we talk about with that. Why don't you continue with some of the tips and tricks that you were telling us that could help us out?
I appreciate it, and please slow me down if I need to take up more time as well, because I know I speak fast. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Um, but we'll go back to like what it takes to actually get better. I will go over practice strategies a little bit later in the slide, but these are just some of the things that you would have to know to like be better individually at League. Micro, how your champion works against how other champions work, how your champion works within the game. Your what items you're buying, stuff like that, which we had talked about earlier. And then macro is like where you need to be on the map, which lane you need to be to, what objectives coming up, where your team's most likely fighting, where's their vision, where's your vision. There's all of that stuff, as well as champion knowledge, which I had like touched on a little bit. There are, I want to say, about 160 champs. The number is never updated, and they keep like releasing champs. So I haven't gone through, and I should have, fact checked myself before putting it on the slides here. But
Yeah.
then each one of those champions has at least 4 abilities, give or take. There are some that are weird that have more. There are some that have less. So then you have how those abilities interact with your champion and how they interact with your champion's abilities. And then you also level up, and each level up you get scaling on your individual ability, as well as you got scaling on your items. So it's doing like math calculations to see whether obviously you don't actually get a calculator out and do the calculations. It's one of those things where you just try on error. You just fight and find out if you're stronger or not.
Yeah, it seems
And
like it's a similar thing to how frame data works in Smash, because there's obviously resources that tell you what the numbers are and all that, but you like there's not like a guide that tells you this is what this means and what's this what that means. It's like you kind of like go into training mode, throw some stuff out, do some combos, and you figure out what's true and what's not.
yes, correct. And then there's also role knowledge. So like, what is your job within the team? What is your job within individual team fights? What is your job in lane? Like the tanks are supposed to be super tanky, and then they start fights. Sometimes the tanks just want to peel back based on the game situation. If your team's behind, you're just looking to peel back for your super fed carries or something like that. So again, like there's so many things that go into an individual game of League of Legends. It's kind of like talking to like a football quarterback and like, what do you see in this play? And then they'd explain for like 30 minutes everything that they see. They just don't actually think about it instantaneously at the time. They just know. Um, and now, so here's the fun part: the practice techniques.
Mm-hmm.
Because League of Legends doesn't have a very good practice tool. Essentially, our practice tool is you versus an AI, and then you can just turn your cooldowns off and work on combos and stuff. But there are no team practice tools, so you can't go back and reset stuff. So currently, some of the best ways to practice League of Legends right now is by doing 1v1s. To learn individual champ matchups. I know it's something that I do when new champs come out. I get one of my players and we just fight over and over again to see which champion's better, and then we'll change up champions and see how that matchup goes. Stuff like that, based on items, based on levels, based on wave management, all of that stuff. Who pushes who, all that stuff's super important for team play. And then this is something that I preach to a lot of my players because they are all college students. You have very limited time in figuring out how to study your schoolwork, study League, and then having a social life and like eating and sleeping. So their days are really packed. So trying to figure out how to optimize your practice, whether you want to do 1v1s, whether you want to just watch VODs and then learn from better players, or just playing solo queue. Solo queue does take a lot of time. Like each game is like bare minimum 20 minutes for the most part if it's a complete game. So that's a really long time commitment to screw up at 5 minutes and then be forced to play it out. So that's why we use practice tool a lot. I'll go over into more some stuff that we do in practice tool for Ferris, individual like 2v2 stuff, team stuff, and then going over macro stuff. Macro is extremely difficult to teach because you need someone to teach you essentially, because macro changes all the time based on what patch it is, like what the objective's the highest priority, the different game states. There's all kinds of really crazy things that you need to learn. And the best way to do this is watching videos and listening to coaches and pro players. There's really no substitute. You can go back and watch your games and think about the decisions you made and what was the correct call. But while you're in the game, it's extremely difficult. It's just kind of trial and error, which with League is difficult because, like I said, each game is like 20 minutes. So it's a very long time period to commit to then fail and learn. And then like, I want to try this and then hope you get into the game state like that. So
The VOD review thing, I feel like VOD review, if you're just trying to get better at anything that requires you to activity or requires you doing anything, VOD review is really helpful because it's you literally can see the mistakes that you make and you can figure out how to like you can figure out a plan to like combat it and like get rid of that bad
Mhm.
habit. So like I've always praised VOD review. Like I remember you at the beginning you said that you did physical sports during high school. Like I was a football player, so we had VOD reviews every Saturday and it did help. And on the esports team, I'm on the Smash team at OU, we do VOD reviews on every Tuesday and those do help a lot as well. So I think VOD reviews as a whole is just a great thing to have. And even my brother who got me into video games always preaches about VOD review as well. So
Which, yes, I mean, for individual lane matchups and stuff, and even some like macro team stuff, absolutely. But for macro calls, you also have to test alternatives, and it's very difficult to test alternatives if all you have is a replay, right? So it's one of those things where like you can think about what mistakes you made, but a lot of times people don't necessarily know the mistakes they made, otherwise they would not have made the mistakes. Which is the other thing that is like trying to League is a very much a mental game as well as a individual mechanical game, which is why it's so hard for people to get good is
mhm.
air quote, because there's just so much going on that's very difficult to understand everything and what is the proper play at the right time. I mean, even when I'm playing my games, I don't know what the proper call is like 50% of the time. So it's based on what your teammates are doing, which in solo queue is always the toss up. It's based on what the enemy's team is doing, which you have no idea for the most part because it's usually a toss up because they don't know what they're doing either. So it's just for that kind of stuff, for macro calls, I usually just work in a team environment rather than individual solo queue, because it's significantly harder to predict what the enemy team is doing in solo queue. Or in team play, it's super easy because you know what the next objective is, what they're going for, what they want to do to end the game, or they want to do to stop you from ending the game, stuff like that. Um, and then I talked a little bit about time management already. Have a goal for each and every one of your practice sessions. This is absolutely huge, because we've all been there where we've just been mindlessly spamming games and hoping that that is what improvement is like. And that's not how you improve at all. I mean, it's similar like running football drills. Like we both played football. It's one of those things where like you do a drill to practice a particular thing, and then you just work on that over and over again. I have practice sheets that I can send to my players of like, how's your lane, what are your things you needed to work on in your lane, so then they think about it like their lane matchup and what they could have done differently in that lane and focus mainly on lane rather than the rest of the game. Go ahead.
One thing that another thing that I hear a lot in my life, and it's something that my current coach now preaches, is endless, like mindless training and mindless practicing of hours of play and play and play does not help because after a while you just start to get burned out, which means you start to get more frustrated, which means you make more mistakes. You're not learning anything.
Absolutely.
When the minute you start to get frustrated at like small things is when you start to think about, okay, I probably should like take a break after this game because it helps the mental as well as helps your improvement.
Absolutely. um and then something else we talked to as well is watching your own replays. I would take an example from Tyler One, because Tyler One is the more famous person who's done all 5 roles to Challenger, and you'll see him go in if he's got a question about something that happened in game. He'll just go back and rewatch it on stream and go, okay, this is what I should have done. This is and it's very easy to see your own mistakes when you've got a zoomed out perspective rather than when you're in the game. You're emotional about the game because you want to win. You're overthinking things or you're underthinking things, where you can go back through the replay and go, okay, look, this is the mistake that I made here. This is what I should have done, which is something that similar we had talked to already. And then the other major thing is I tell my players is watch other players replays, professional players or just like high elo one tricks, and watch how they play certain matchups. If you've got a question about like Vex versus Ari or something like that, a matchup, you just go back and you find Bjergs and you find Faker, you find one of the pro players who are really good at playing those individual matchups and figure out what they're doing compared to what you're doing, and seeing where they pressure and where they don't, and where they call for jungle attention and where they don't, and stuff like that. Um, and playing games when you have time, because we've all been there where we're like, I want to play games, and then I can do one more, I can do one more, and then that last game is usually just a tragedy of really bad decisions either by yourself or your teammates, and then you're just mentally tilted and don't want to play the game again. That's something that I've been working on a lot of my players, because I have one player who plays 3,000 games a year, and it's like, hey, look, you need to cut that number in half. Like, you just need to be watching your own VODs. You need to be going outside and touching grass. You need to be going to class, getting your homework done.
Do
Like, you
literally
can't be
anything
taking...
but play the
Correct.
game.
Correct. Because you eventually you just get stuck in a mental state of like, I'm gonna lose because I played this last game very badly, or you get stuck in bad habits, which is the other thing. It's very difficult to train out bad habits once you have them, And if you repeatedly practice bad habits, it's going to be harder to fix them. Which is why whenever new champs come out, I tell my players to watch other people play them first, just so that you've got a general understanding of how you're supposed to play the champion before you go into it, rather than just kind of figuring it out on your own, which has been extremely helpful. Do you have any questions for me right now? Because we're getting towards the end of the PowerPoint. I think I have like 2 or 3 more slides.
No, I don't got any questions right now.
Okay.
I've been getting any questions I've been asking after you talk.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so then this slide is practicing it as a team. This is significantly more difficult because, like I said, the practice tool doesn't necessarily facilitate that level of practice, which I really wish it did. And Rye keeps saying at one point it will. But so how we practice individual 2v2 matchups, or even just like synergy at the beginning of the year, is that we'll do 2v2s. Like our AD carry and support will play against me and then our support who graduated last year. And then we'll just fight at level 3, fight at level 6, see who tries to get jungle prio, or not jungle prio, wave prio level 1 to get level 2, and just do the basic mechanics of individual laning and see, who's better or what champs are better at what, and try and punish their mistakes as much as possible so they learn. Granted, they're going to be playing better players than us, which is another great thing to do, is to play someone better than you, to help point out your mistakes and punish your mistakes that normal solo queue players wouldn't. But that's something that we've been doing a lot this year because we've had very limited practice time, because we have 3 seniors on our team and they're busy like trying to get internships and going to class for their 400, 500 level classes. So you can do that with AD carry and support. You can do that with mid jungle. For mid jungle, you fight at 3 and you fight at 6, and then you restart the map. We'll do that like 5 or 6 times in an hour, just to practice, to be like, hey, look, this is how I want to play this fight. Hey, this is the path I will be coming from if I'm clearing starting here. This is how this champion works. This champion's going to get there first, so we need to play a little bit more defensively, or you need to wait so they can't engage on you, stuff like that. And we'll just like fight in lane and practice individual mechanics as well as communication and synergy, because a lot of team play is strictly communication, which is very difficult to teach. Just like life in general, trying to tell people how you want to be talked to and coming up to working in teams in general, figuring out plans. So the individual stuff is all solo queue. Well, communication is 90% of the team practice. The other things we do is shot calling, improving shot calling, shot calling practice. This is super difficult. Usually we have, the way that Ferris runs their team is that we have one person making all the decisions and everyone else feeding them information. Other people can override the main shot caller if they think they've got a better idea, but for the most part, everyone kind of listens to one person, which is currently our mid laner. And so he just started doing shot calling stuff this year. And how I taught him how to do shot calling, essentially we pull up a VOD and say, okay, what do you know and what do you think is next? And I would like randomly pause the VOD at different points and say, okay, what is next? And then he would just take all the information that he knows about the game and say, okay, this is what's next. And then it's either right or wrong, and we talk about it. With team play, there are very few objectively correct decisions. There are a lot of like, we could do this or this kind of decisions, but there's very few objective decisions of like, yes, we need to do this now kind of things. So then it's just getting everyone on the same page from that point. But that's mainly how we do a lot of our shot calling practice, which is not in game at all, because in game it's too stressful and you're already thinking about other things.
There is a question actually from DS Remastered 18 from Twitch chat. He asked, "What rank are you guys?" Me personally, I don't play this game. My main game is Smash, and when last time I played this game was like I said, in middle school, and that was I guess a bronze or silver. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure Mans is a lot higher than me.
So this surprises everyone when I tell them I peaked Plat 4. So I'm not exactly crazy high elo, but I've spent literally all of my time learning about the game. So if you weren't here before, I had coached in Europe before. I'd coached in academy and challenger scenes and professional teams across Europe, and that's where all of my experience comes from. I will honestly say I am not the best player ever, nor will I ever be, nor will any of my players. My team currently, we have 1 Masters player and then 4 Plat players. And we compete pretty close with most Diamond teams, mainly just off of team play rather than individual mechanics, which is why it's so great to play in teams, because the collective is usually stronger than the individual.
So then you guys as a team must have like a good team synergy and like bond together. So then a question is, when you guys are playing as a really good team and there's a case where someone does mess up or someone gets down, like how do you guys pick each other up? Like I know obviously it's gonna be like the hey, don't worry about it, shake it off. But like, is there anything specific that you guys do that's like, is there anything that like there's a connection between you two, like you players as a team?
For the most part, you just change the subject. Usually, you go like, "What's the next play?" And that's something like when we're losing games, that's just one thing that I preach to all my players, just like, "What's the next play? What's the next play?" Because it's super easy to dwell on the mistakes, dwell on the problems, and the one thing you don't want is fighting with players. Because we've had that happen in years past where players were just arguing with each other, just like, "Hey guys, this isn't productive. We're not looking to win the game. We're just looking to fight each other, and we should be fighting them rather than fighting each other." So that's one thing that I've always taught them is like, what's the next play? Just focus on the next play. We'll talk about any mistakes after the game and review. We'll talk about the mistakes later, but in game is not the time for mistakes or to talk about mistakes. So we just go, what's the next play? And that's one thing when I hear in team comps, because we can listen to the team comps where we can't say anything during our competitive games for now anyways. That's might be changing here soon, but whenever I hear what's the next play, I just get a little smile on my face. I'm like, okay, yes, they're refocusing, they're figuring out what they want to do, and they're going on to the next play.
Yeah, it's
And,
like it makes you feel probably like yes, they're learning. It's probably it's good.
absolutely. Which, as a coach, I would just like, from my point of view, listening to their games and watching their games, it's awful when I see them make mistakes because there's nothing I can do. It's like watching a slow motion train crash. You're just like, no, please don't do that. They're there, and they'll just walk into a bush and die. And it's just like, well, if I unmuted, it would have been different. So
Yeah.
that's something that may be coming next year for collegiate, anyways. So we'll
Okay.
see. That'll
Um,
that'll be interesting. I know
another
we'll play a whole lot better if I'm just shot calling for.
yeah. Another question that DS Remastered has is, what are your thoughts on FlexQ?
So it's an okay practice environment, mainly to work on comms. That's how we use it right now. Currently with collegiate, the practice environment in general, this small tiny rant that is applicable. The practice, like the way that people practice in collegiate, is that they want to win practices so they feel like they're getting better. And I've always been like, no, I want someone to beat us so they can see our mistakes. So when we try to get practices with other universities, they see one of our players is masters and all of our other players are plat, and they're like, okay, we don't want to play you because you have a masters player, which is like the third highest rank. And we're like, okay, but like we have a bunch of plat players too. That one person is going to throw the game off that much, hopefully. And there's a lot of universities that are not all like same ranks, so you'll be playing like challenger players and gold players in the same game, which is the top rank, and then like the 50%, right. So it's really difficult to find teams that want to play us, or even teams that are like balanced games where FlexQ does an okay job balancing. You're not going to get the same sort of team play for FlexQ as far like their team working together. Their team working together. So we just do it to practice our individual communication and some of our team play stuff, and just have fun for the most part. And at the end of the day, that's all that it's about, really. As far as like individual mechanics for FlexQ can be great for individual practice, because a lot of times you'll play players who are either higher elo than you or a lot lower elo than you. So you practice on abusing those leads that you get, or doing your best to try and stay even and learn matchups against players who are better than you. So I don't like FlexQ as like a main practice thing, but it can have its benefits. Is the
Okay.
not answer I will give.
Okay. Well, I mean, I understood it. It makes sense to me. It's like there are some like yes, there are. When it comes to like all avenues of practice for a thing, there are some that will like always helpful. There are some that will always help you, but there's also going to be some that's like it's kind of situational. Like in this situation, it'll help you, yes, but in this situation, it wouldn't help you. So it's kind of like you kind of got to like try it and get a feel for it. Like after playing a game of it, and then you're like, well, I mean, I don't think this is really helping me feel like helping me get better. So she chooses to go to something else.
Yeah, well, I mean, so like an example is in FlexQ last week. We played Florida Gold Coast, their university team in FlexQ. So we just had like an impromptu scrim that one planned just complete for free without scheduled. So like that stuff can happen, and that stuff is fun and nice. But for the most part, scheduling scrims is extremely difficult, mainly because of the other people who are scheduling scrims. The most difficult part of life is other people, kind of things. So some random wisdom quotes. Sorry.
I mean, I
uh,
mean, when I heard it, I'm like, yeah, that rings really true.
yeah.
Well, I had a question actually. So while you were answering the flex queue question, I was thinking about when me and my team would play games, and then I would like try to apply it with you guys. And one thing that we do on the Smash team is, because we all are pretty good with more than one character in the game. So because of that, we have more versatility for matchups. And I was wondering, is that the same with you guys? Because there's multiple champions in the game, and I'm pretty sure there's groups of champions that all excel in a specific role. So do you have players mainly focus on one role and they play like the multiple champions who are good in that role, or do you try to encourage your players to like be versatile with learning other roles and other players?
No, it's just you play. So with League, people very rarely ever stray outside of their role. For like solo queue and stuff, you can play one of two roles essentially is what you'll get queued into. But you'll play champions that fit your role. 80 carries usually just play 80 carries. They play some mages sometimes, but 80 carries play 80 carries. Mid laners play mid laners, stuff like that. There are a bunch of different champions that fill that role, and then those matchups can also be different. So it's like I said, there's 160 plus champions, give or take, at this point, and you have to play more than one champion. You can play one role over and over again, but also in League, just like how you guys have like stage bans, you have champion bans in League of Legends. So you can, if you just play one champion, you get banned out, which is happening to our top laner. I'm sorry, Thompson. He is like a master's one trick, so he only plays one champion in one role, and that's all he plays. But when we play in competitive games, he's been on the team for 2 years, and he's never seen that champion in practice or in a competitive game because they just ban his one champion. So you have to play multiple champions, and also the meta changes. So like multiple champions become good at certain times, well then they will get toned down, and other champions will get buffed, and then those champions are really good at certain times. So it's you can't just play one or two characters. You always have to keep getting what characters you play for the most part. You can still play one character, but you're really looking to play multiple for competitive
Yeah,
games.
you can have your main, but like it's encouraged to be versatile in your role.
Absolutely.
And
Back to learning. If you're going to learn how to play League, it's best to learn on one champion. So you know how that one champion interacts with all these other champions, and then you've got a point of reference to reference them towards. Like, okay, I know what this champion does to my main champion, so then this character that I'm playing now will do a similar thing or a different thing, and will be able to beat them at this certain point. So it's, yeah, like I said, it's a lot when you're dealing with so many characters.
yeah, okay. Well, I noticed that the slides haven't been moving, so I'm assuming that
Yes.
you're now done with the slides then here.
Yes,
Okay.
that is no the size.
Okay. Well,
I am more than willing to take tons of questions as
well, it's
well.
good because we actually do have three questions now, and the
Okay,
first
perfect.
question seems like it's from someone who sounds pretty familiar. Coach Ricochet. He asked, "What do you think is the most important skill to learn for team play?"
Teamwork.
That
So
was easy.
it's yeah, no. So like the explanation for this is a lot of esports players haven't played traditional sports. This is their first like team environment. They've had like group projects in school, but that's it. So going from a solo queue environment where it's all about you and your individual to then going to an environment where it's about the team, and just you don't have to be the one succeeding, and other people can succeed, and you can just play a supporting role. And that's one thing that I have to teach all of my players when they first get here, is like how you play in a team, which is significantly different than solo queue stuff, because obviously if you're overperforming or an outstanding performer, their team is just going to pick on you. Much like our top laner currently, who every single competitive game he gets multiple bans. So it's one of those things where it's just like you need to work as a team, and the individual stuff you learn in solo queue. The team stuff you learn when playing it from a team. I hope that answers my boss's question. If not, I'll get an angry DM later.
Well, I mean, it seems like a pretty. It seems like it was the right answer to me. Like when you're playing a team-based thing, you're playing a team-based game. One of the like most important skills to learn, obviously, is teamwork.
How to play as a team.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, another question from person from house. He said thoughts on Blitzcrank Jungle asking for a friend, and they said Chad in parentheses. I don't know if you know who Chad is, but
I'm gonna say yes. I know who it is, but I don't. I would have to read the name. So Blitzcrank Jungle is still getting buffed. Riot really wants to make it a thing. I know my jungler's been playing a little bit, playing an AD, AP, tank. He's been having a lot of fun with it. I don't know if it's good. So the one thing that I will say is, because they keep buffing his base damages for his clears and his ratios, it's making him even better support. So if you look at the different analytics sites that are currently available, there's literally hundreds of them: op.gg, u.gg, Analytics, all of those. Blitzcrank is one of the highest win rate supports right now, rather than jungle. So take that information as you will. I know it's really fun. I know I've seen it do really bad, and I've seen it do really good. So it's still super new to decide whether it's super OP or not. But Riot's really wanting to make it a thing, and preseason's coming up, so they always kind of change things for preseason. So we'll see what they do with Blitzcrank Jungle in preseason. I just think he's too good of a support that if you buff his damages up too much, he'll just be a support rather than a jungler.
Man, it must be nice to like hear that there's gonna be upcoming changes to a character, because like with Smash, when we were still getting patches for that game, we didn't really hear if anyone was gonna get updated. We heard, hey, there's gonna be a patch coming out at this time tomorrow, and then when we get the patch notes, we look and it's either we cheer because our main got buffed, or we cry because our main got nerfed, and then they buff another really good character. So the whole thing of how like Riot Games actually talks with their fan base and lets them know like, hey, look out for these changes to these characters at this time and stuff must be really nice. It must be a really nice feeling.
Yeah, they talk, but they don't do a whole lot of listening. But league patches usually come out every 2 weeks, give or take, depending on like what time of year it is and stuff. So that should give you like an idea of just how fast things are changing. Like you'll be playing one champion, and then 2 weeks later it gets nerfed, and you've got to completely learn something new, or you play a champion that's less optimal.
Oh, that just sounds stressful.
Yes, that's why it's their ploy to get everyone to keep playing the game. Is that things keep changing, champions keep becoming good, champions are bad, you keep switching your main, stuff like that.
It sounds like when you hear it sounds like, why would you do that? But then you look at how much people are playing the game and constantly keep up with it. Like, it obviously works.
Yeah, so the ranked population in North America is like 1.4 million, and that's like not counting people who have multiple accounts and stuff. If you just look at the bottom of the ladder, it's like 1.4 million players, but something like 75% of the total player base doesn't play ranked. So you're looking at like 4 million players that play at least, once a week, once a month. So it's a fairly large player base, and that's just in North America. EU, it's bigger. Obviously, the Asian regions is significantly higher as well.
Yeah.
So
well, another question. This is actually the last question we had here. Also, to go back to Purse from House, Ferris Esports also said Chad in.
That's also my boss as well. So he's just saying things in different accounts.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So he's just talking about account. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, the last question we have is from Swaggy Burger 1, and he said, "How do you deal with enters queue?" I don't know what that means. Enters queue.
So there's a couple different queues. Losers queue, there's winners queue, there's Smurf queue, and then enters queue is not something I've heard of before. So I know it's difficult. The best you can do is just try and save your mental and not type to them, and not worry about what they're doing, and focus on your individual practice, how you're doing individually. There be people who want to just lose the game because they're not having fun, or they just dislike you for some reason, whether you know it or not. And the best thing you can do is just focus on your individual stuff, which is what solo queue is for. Practice on your individual mechanics and how you play the lane, your matchup, stuff like that, and do as much as you can to learn from that one individual game. One thing that I'll definitely say is that you can't measure success and learning on wins and losses. That will just absolutely drive you crazy. There are accounts where I've just like perma fought 24/7 with like a 25% win rate in silver, and I've learned so much more on those accounts than I have try harding on like my gold one account. Right. So it's limit testing. I wouldn't call it inting. It's just sometimes people are just better. And it happens. Based on the matchmaking system, you never know who's going to be on your teammates, who's good, who's smurfing, who's not. So you just have to focus on your individual. And if you focus on your individual play and your individual mechanics and consistently getting leads and pressuring the enemy teams, getting your tower first, stuff like that, you will climb. And you can't be focusing on wins and losses. And you can't let that destroy your mental either, which I know is difficult.
Yeah, getting your mental destroyed, and like really getting your mental destroyed and you're competing at all is like, it's like your engine literally blowing up in a car. Because once you don't got that, once you don't have that, it's like, what's the point in even like, you don't have the drive, you don't have
Absolutely.
the focus to get better, you don't have anything without your mental. So you got to make sure like that's your top priority when you're in these competing. Like when you're competing in esports, because the moment your mental goes away, it's like you don't even want to pick up the controller anymore.
Absolutely. And with League, it's one of those things where people also don't know who's on the other side of the computer. I know with like Smash and stuff, the tournaments, you get to see the person you're playing against. But with team-based games, like you don't hear them, you don't see them, you just type to them. So it's very easily to like dehumanize your teammates, so like not care. My personal opinion is that you should be caring about every single game you play, but just focusing on yourself for the most part and trying to win the game. And if you keep doing that, you'll probably win more than you lose. And the general rule of thumb is if you're not inting, then more than likely there's a higher chance that the enemy team isn't entered than you because they've got 5 players. And if you're not inting, you have 4. So that's just stats, basic. So,
All right. Well, Mans, thank you for giving us your time and giving us
of
these
course.
hopeful tips on getting better at this game. Because honestly, I'm not even gonna lie. Like me hearing this stuff, I'm like, I feel like if I was to get back into the game, like hop on one of the computers here at the Grizz Den and just decide to play it for fun, I would know what to do to like if I wanted to get better. So this, for me, this was helpful, and I would imagine for the esports players or the esports players and coaches in the Michigan League, it was very helpful for them too. One last question from person from house. It is, what is something to focus on in silver to gold lobbies?
So that's one of my favorite questions is what do I improve? And the basic answer is everything. So as I talked early in these presentations of individual practicing, you should be trying to get to 80 minion kills at 10 minutes. You should be trying to 1v1 solo kill or 2v2 kill your lane as much as possible, like literally every game. Practice your warding so you don't die to jungle ganks. Do your best to try and track the enemy jungler based on where they started, which is obviously a super complex topic, which you can find YouTube videos on. And like I said, it's one of those things where like, what's the difference between a gold player and a silver player? What's the difference between a gold player and a plat player? What's the difference between a challenger player and a gold player? It's like the difference is they do all the little things better. And there's no one individual this will help you. It's one of those things where if you just my biggest advice I could tell you is just play one champion over and over again and just play nothing but that champion. Watch your VODs back over again and don't blame your teammates. I know that last one's kind of a big thing for everyone. Is it's very easy to blame your teammates, and you're the only consistent thing in all of your games. So if you're consistently losing, it's not necessarily always your teammates' fault. Sometimes it is, but
And,
most of the time it's not.
blaming your teammates isn't gonna help you get better. It's not gonna fix
Correct.
your habits, your bad habits at all. It's just gonna, honestly, it's just gonna let them just stay there and fester and probably get stronger.
Absolutely, and then that'll destroy your mental, and then it's a negative snowball effect where things will just keep getting worse.
Yep.
So,
Another question from DSP Master says, "What are some good drills for brand new players?"
so beginner bots obviously for brand new players, just learning what your abilities do. Obviously watching YouTube videos on people playing the champion will also help kickstart that kind of development. For the most part, I just go into practice tool and just practice last hitting minions. You're looking to get, like I said, 80 minutes at 10 minutes, and then add a beginner bot in or a normal bot and get 80 CS per minute, and then also 2 or 3 kills, and then just keep working on that. Simple champions are better. Obviously, MF is just, I know one thing that LS preaches, and I also agree with. MF, Sivir, the super easy champs, Jinx as well. Just Ash, just right click to do damage and don't worry about your abilities or what they do, or auto attack cancels and stuff like that. So that would be my biggest advice is just practice the little things, hitting minions, killing bots, getting your tower, stuff like that. And then you can graduate to 1v1s where you play with your friend or friends, multiple friends, and then just have them try and stop you from getting to ADCS. And that'll be probably the most, impactful, learning to dodge skill shots and also put yourself in positions to get minions, stuff like that. And those are just the basic, like, first 10 minutes of the game. The next, 10 to 20 minutes of the game is just all watching VODs or talking to your friends or stuff like that. People will learn more. Yeah, that's the best advice I can give. I know it's I hate those things like what's the one thing I can do? What should all new players do? And it's one of those things where just play the game and you learn as much as you can while playing the game. Think critically.
I would say
So
like play the game and probably have an open mind to things that happen, like be
yes,
observant and all that.
absolutely. And obviously if you're super new, don't listen to what all your friends say, ask questions. Don't no blind faith. Just always ask questions. Asking why is the most important thing you can do.
Well, Again, thank you so much, Coach Mans,
Of
as well
course.
as Ferris State for helping us out with this and giving out these tips and tricks for the players in the Michigan High School Esports League. And thank you again to everyone who came out to watch this presentation and hear these tips and tricks from the coach. Come back on the channel next week, Monday, October 24th, and we'll be doing my favorite game that I love, Super Smash Brothers Ultimate. So you could hear from me as well as one of my teammates here at OU our tips and tricks for that game. But again, Coach Mans, thank you. I hope you have a great, wonderful night. This is like my first time I've ever done this presentation type thing, so I'm doing this outro is like. I'm hoping I'm saying the right things.
No. You good? Can I plug the university stuff as well?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yes.
So follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/Ferris Esports, and it's the same thing for Twitch, twitch.tv/Ferris Esports. We stream games like every day of the week from 7 o'clock to like 10. So we have all different kinds of esports titles. Come out and support the teams if you have time. If not, it's just something fun to listen in the background while you're studying.
Yeah, or just watch the VODs if you want to. You could watch them play, and you could get some tips and tricks from them, maybe.
Perfect. There you go.
All right,
watching people better than you.
Again, thank you everyone for coming out. Thank you, Mans, for this. One of my bosses, Maggie, she just dropped in the Twitch chat the Ferris State Esports, Ferris State's Twitter account, and I'm sure she could also. Well, if you could, Maggie, could you also put in the Michigan High School Esports League ones as well, so they could check out that one as well. They could follow it, so then they can get notifications for the next strategy sessions and just other events that we're planning for the Michigan High School Esports League. Well, that's all from us. Thank you guys for coming out. I hope you guys have a wonderful night. And yeah,
thank you, everyone.